All right, here we go. Welcome to the famous food talk. It's called Food 101 because it is here to teach you everything there is to know about food and your relationship to food, but also do it in a way that is basic and easily understood, hence the 101 part. So I always start this talk by explaining what my intention is. Okay, it's very important to understand what my intention is because the information that I'm going to be delivering here, a lot of times, is the opposite of what you've already been told, or the opposite of what you may have read, or in a lot of ways is contrasting everything that you've already learned in your life. And so, if I don't set up what my intention is, you might be thinking that I'm out to have some agenda, or that I want to change how you are, or I care how you eat, or that I'm interested in what you do with your personal decisions. Okay? And my first declaration of what my intention is that I'm not here to change you. You're going to do whatever you want. You're an adult and you're responsible. My job is to uplift your level of information, to uplift your level of what's called knowledge, and you have heard that knowledge is power. Have you all heard that knowledge is power?
Yes.
Okay. Well, why is knowledge power? What does knowledge deliver? What does it give you?
Information.
Well, information is knowledge, and what do both of them give you? Options. Options, right? If you only know one thing, you're going to only do one thing. But if you know more than one thing, you now have options. You can choose to do it the old way, you can choose to do it the new way, you can choose to do it some other way. Because you have knowledge. Now you then get to employ your level of awareness and your level of consciousness and your free will, and then get to walk down whatever path you want to walk down. But the opposite of knowledge is ignorance, right? And ignorance is the same thing as being handcuffed. Okay? So being handcuffed to your own ignorance is what most of us are doing in our regular lives because we haven't taken the time, because we've been busy, to really study this subject, as I have. So my intention is not to change anything. It's simply to uplift your level of knowledge, level of power, in which case then, in your daily life, when the time comes for you, you may choose to employ the information I tell you. You may never choose to employ it. Okay? But the metaphor that I will give you, which you have already heard, perhaps, is this metaphor of the mango. Okay? I'm here and I'm eating a mango. I've already eaten a mango, and I know what a mango tastes like. But if you have never eaten a mango before, my description and my expression of what a mango is actually like will never reach you until you experiment yourself and try it. Okay? So that's going to be the main theme. Okay? Those that are in the teacher training presently, this starts your official time of dietary transition. Okay? And now you're going to have the backup as to why we're suggesting that. And actually force-feeding you the mango, making you try it, and then at the end of the whole thing, you can say, you know what, I don't like mangoes, and then we can all move on, and that's all of our right and our prerogative. Okay, so that's my intention. Fine. Now you need to know my history. Okay, I am not on some pedestal teacher of health who never lived in any kind of a strange way. I grew up only eating maybe 5 things. I grew up eating pizza, sausage pizza at that, okay? Brownies. I grew up eating chicken burgers, and Coca-Cola, and McDonald's. I would say that those 5-6 things that I mentioned there were about 90% of my diet. I did not eat one piece of fruit, not one single piece of fruit, until I was 22 or 23 years old. Could you possibly imagine that? So the place where I come from, the level of dysfunction of my former diet, how I used to live and how I used to be, is so radically horrible that I empathize with everybody and how they're eating presently and how the whole thing is. I understand. And that's why my talk has no judgmental qualities. I sometimes am rather blunt in a humorous way, but no judgment, because I never judge. How can I judge what I used to do? So I used to eat all this meat, I used to eat all this dairy, of course I did. I was American, growing up a regular American little kid. Only now I realize, I had a lot of stomach pain, I had a lot of issues, things that I didn't think about back then. I would eat a whole pizza and then I would have a lot of pain and then I wouldn't know why, but now I know why. When you eat a whole pizza, or any amount of cheese really, that it could affect, pain in my system. So I've learned lately now what I was doing then. Alright, so that's where I've come from. That's my intention. And now we're ready to fasten our seatbelts and take a ride. Okay? So this officially represents the first day of the rest of your life. There is your life before this talk, and then there is your life after this talk. So, first things first, okay? Who are you? Who are we? I'm going to actually start talking about meat first, okay? So we're going to get into meat first. We're going to define meat. Firstly, define it as chicken, meat as fish, meat as cow, meat as goat, meat as human being, meat as any other animal you would have chosen to eat. You know that they recently found in the UK that a lot of the hamburgers have horse meat inside of it. Did you read about that like 2 days ago? So all meat's the same. It's all just dead animals, alright? Dead things, alright? Things that at one time were alive and now they're dead. And I'm not talking about plants, okay? I'm talking about creatures. Right? So any meat, all seafood, it's all included in my definition of meat. We're going to talk about that first. Okay. And I asked the question, who are you? Who do you think you are? Okay? What species are you? And I know what you've been told, and let's talk about what you've been told. First of all, who are you? What are you? Do you know what kind of species you are? What's even the name of your species? Homo sapiens sapien. Okay, there's two sapiens, yeah? Fine, yeah? That's true. And what is Homo sapien? What kind of animal is Homo sapien? What would you call Homo sapien? Huh?
An animal that thinks.
Yeah, no, of course, but, classifications. So classifications, yeah? That's an animal, of course, but let's get closer to it. It's a primate. You ever heard that before? A primate? Okay? Homo sapien is a primate. Got that? Clear? That's pretty clear. Okay, good. And how many there's two different kinds of primates, basically. Do you know what the two different kinds of primates are? Anyone guess? No? Monkeys? Yes, monkeys is one, and apes is the other one. Great. Monkeys and apes. Okay, now what's the difference?
A tail.
A tail. Now you've been to my food talk before, so you're not allowed to answer every single question before everyone else, but you're 100% right. Okay, so a tail, that's the difference. Monkeys have tails, apes don't have tails. Monkeys from South America can use their tails like an actual limb. Monkeys from Africa don't. Their tails hang limp. They can maybe do a little bit, but they can't hang from them. But monkeys and tails. Monkeys have tails and apes don't. So what the heck are you? What are you? You're an ape. Okay? You are a member of the family called great apes. Now, what else is a great ape? There are chimpanzees, there are gorillas, there are gibbons, okay? There are orangutans. These are the great apes, and there are human beings, Homo sapiens. If you were to take one of all of those species and dissect us, like open us up and look at our digestive structure, you would see mirror images of each other. reflections of each other. Essentially the same digestive system that you see in a gorilla, you see in us. As you see in a chimpanzee, you see in us. They are exactly the same. What you see is an intestinal structure that is 12 times the length of the actual torso of the animal. So there's a ratio, there's a relationship between the structural anatomy and the species. And all of these species, the great apes, have the same structural anatomy. Now, for digestion. In nature, there is a rule called comparative anatomy in the biology of nature, the study of nature. Comparative anatomy says that when scientists look at a species and see that the digestive anatomy is the same in different species, when they see that, it is an absolute connection and fact that they eat the same thing. Does that make sense? Every time that scientists open up a carnivorous digestive system, it looks very similar to other carnivorous systems. Omnivorous systems look similar to each other. And they know what the animal eats by looking at its digestive system. They know its diet. That's why when they look at fossils from 400 million years ago, they say, oh, well, this dinosaur was a vegetarian dinosaur, and this one was a meat eater. They know by looking at the digestive structures, and sometimes the claws, and sometimes whatever, but they have their ways. Okay, fine. Well, if you were to open all of us up, we would have the same digestive structure. It means we all eat the same thing. And I worked at a primate center. Okay, I worked at a center for a couple of years that was essentially a huge primate zoo called Monkey Jungle in Miami. Okay, and I spent a lot of time there, and I spent a lot of time with the feeding of these animals and cleaning up after them and watching them. And so I know exactly what primates eat, not from some theory, but from actually feed. They eat only fruit. You want to keep a primate healthy, you feed it only fruit. Okay, and I'm not telling you that we as human beings are going to only eat fruit. What I'm saying is that's a very healthy thing to do. Okay, why? Because that's how we're designed. We are what's called frugivores. Now in nature, there are frugivores, there are carnivores, there are herbivores, and there are omnivores. Okay? And let's talk about what's what. Alright? So, what is an herbivore? What's an example of an herbivore? A cow, yeah. An elephant, right? A gazelle. Okay? And animals that eat grass and they eat leaves, and they're herbivores. They have multiple stomachs, because it takes a lot of effort and a lot of phases to extract the amino acids and to extract the valuable aspects from grass. And to get it to be liberated from the actual cellular structure isn't easy. That's why we can't do it. If we eat grass, we don't really get much out of it. But a cow has multiple stomachs, or a gazelle has multiple stomachs, so they are able to actually extract nutrients from grass and leaves, whereas we cannot do that. Fine, herbivores, true. And then there are carnivores. And carnivorous systems are, unlike ours, exactly the opposite, whereas ours are 12 times the length of our torso. That's really huge. In our case, that's about 50, 60 feet of intestines stuffed together in this amount of space. Very narrow. We have a lot of nooks and crannies, a lot of places where things are going to get stuck. Things could get stuck. A lot of hiding spots. A carnivorous digestive system is wide and smooth. It has no place for anything to get stuck, and it's very short. It's very consolidated, so that the material, which in this case is always rotting, because carnivores are eating dead animals, can kind of get, the juice can get extracted out of it, and then the whole stuff can get eliminated real fast, because nature knows that dead bodies are decomposing, and the system for carnivores are very short and sweet, so to speak. Omnivores are somewhere in the middle. Okay, they are structurally different from both, and they have similarities to both. Okay, yeah.
What's an example of
An omnivore, we're going to talk about that. Okay, because right now I have defined herbivore and I have defined carnivore, and I have a feeling that you have been told that you are an omnivore. Is that true? Anyone believe, or at least heard, that you're an omnivore? This is the participatory part of the talk. Yes, you have. Because even if you have not heard that, you behave that way. You eat that way.
Aren't pigs omnivores?
Yeah, so absolutely. Pigs are omnivores. So you've been told you're an omnivore. Okay, now let's analyze whether you think really you are an omnivore or not. And my favorite way to determine whether you're an omnivore or not is called the family tree game. Okay? What family do you belong in? And if you've ever seen those old movies, or who knows, you have a nice house, you have a fireplace, and you have the picture over the fireplace of the family. You ever seen that in the movies or something like that? The family picture? Okay? So this is a game that I always like to play, is pick a family. Who do you want to be hanging out with over your fireplace? Okay? Pick a evolutionary family. Okay? Okay, option number one. You can be sitting there over your fireplace with the orangutan, the chimpanzee, the gorilla, the bonobo. Okay, fine. And granted, they have a lot more hair on their face than you do. That's your first option. Okay. Second option is you could crawl into the picture and be with the omnivore family, the pigs, the rats, and the dogs, and the bears. Pigs, rats, dogs, and bears are omnivores. They will eat anything. I mean, they'll eat anything. They don't have any consideration. They're like garbage cans.
If you have a dog, you know that.
Yes, they'll eat anything. Dogs are omnivores, but cats are carnivores. Cats are not omnivores, not really. I mean, you can force a cat to be vegetarian. You can force it. It can be done. But that's a very interesting thing to do to a cat. Okay? I don't suggest that. And I don't know how well that would work. But with a dog, if you did it right, it could be done. Because a dog's actually omnivorous. They can do it. But a cat, that's not nearly as good of an idea. Okay? So, but are you a pig, rat, or a dog? Or are you a member of the great apes with the big brains and the gracefulness and the intelligence? Okay? So we now, hopefully you're identifying yourself for who you are. You're a primate. You have certain digestive structures. Now let's analyze what happens when you put meat into those digestive structures that you have. Okay? Because you don't have an omnivorous system. You have a frugivorous system, like all the other great apes have, made for eating mostly fruit. Why fruit? Well, you ever heard that you need fiber for regularity? You ever heard that one before? Gotta have your fiber. Okay, well, why? What is it about fiber that's so important? Anyone know? Well, fiber doesn't do anything, right? Because fiber is not alive, it doesn't move anything, but yes, you're onto something there. Fiber is required for the peristaltic action, which is that snake-like muscular action to actually move the stuff through the system. It needs to grab onto something so that it can be kind of brushed through the system, and that which it needs to grab onto is fiber. So fiber is required to move things through. Exactly right. Now, fruit has a lot of fiber, coming with its vitamins and its minerals and its essential fatty acids and its enzymes and its complete package of nutrition. It also has fiber, a lot of it. One of the definitions of meat, one of the very definitions of meat, of the characteristics of meat, is that it is fiberless, has no fiber whatsoever. Meat has no fiber. So, if you put something that has no fiber into a system that requires fiber, and a system that has lots of nooks and crannies, lots of places for things to hide, things that if it gets stuck, because it has no fiber, it will get stuck, okay? That process of when meat gets stuck and then sits there is called putrefaction. Okay?
Yum.
Everyone's favorite word. Putrefaction. It's obviously where the word putrefied comes from, and we know the word is to rot or to go bad or disgusting. Okay? Putrefaction happens when meat gets stuck and sits and stagnates. Exactly like what would happen if you put a couple of pieces of meat and some sugar and some water and you closed it up into a closed container and you left it out in the sun for 3 or 4 weeks.
No.
I mean, you'd open it up and it would just, I mean, you wouldn't be able to contain yourself. Meanwhile, that's what's going on the inside of your body. That is absolutely the scientific experiment that you're doing within yourself. When you eat fish, when you eat chicken, when you eat things that are going to get stuck, because it's not a question of if. Meat doesn't belong in this system. So if you put it in there anyway, well, we're going to get certain effects. And one of the effects is that's going to putrefy. When it putrefies, it's going to create poisons. That's what putrefaction does. That's what it is. It's creating poisons. That's the byproduct of the whole breakdown process. That's such a deep, nasty organism level. A lot of toxins come out. Okay? And that's a self-poisoning process. So a lot of us have symptoms. Maybe we don't concentrate as well as we think we should, or we have temper issues or irritation, or we feel anxiety in our general life, or we have bad breath, or we get headaches, or we have any number of symptoms that we just can't quite figure out. Where the heck are they coming from? Well, one very good potential source of where they're coming from is your own internal IV drip of poison that is coming from your intestines, from the putrefying, rotting, dead animals that are stuck inside your system, which is a primate system, so it was never designed for that. Okay? So, first thing is, because meat has no fiber, it's going to get stuck, and if it's going to get stuck, it's going to rot. And if it's going to rot, that's not going to be good, no matter what. And there are smaller symptomologies that happen that I just discussed, things that are like, little things that maybe they're not so little. And then there's, of course, the bigger things that happen from what happens when we treat our digestive and internal systems like we don't know what we're doing. Those are the bigger disease processes, the ones that we don't have to mention right now. There's no reason to go in that direction with this talk because we're having so much fun. Right? Right. I am. I'm having fun. Everyone having fun?
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah. I'm going to talk about all the exceptions. I'm going to talk about all the cultural differences. I'm going to talk about every question that you have about this subject, because obviously I know what you're going to ask me, because I've been doing these talks for a long time, and those are logical questions. So everybody has those logical questions. So at the end, if I have not addressed your issue, or whether your question about history of humankind, if I have not addressed that, at the end we're going to field questions. Okay? So always write your questions down. Okay? Are we good to go?
I have a question. If you give a piece of meat to an ape, will he eat it? Why?
No.
Why?
Why won't an ape eat it? Okay, well,
Yeah,
it depends on if you cook it and flavor it and put sugar on it, like what you do at a barbecue. You could force something to eat something, but here's the question. If you worked at the zoo and your job was to keep the ape in perfect health because you're a veterinarian, okay? And I know because I was with these veterinarians at this primate center as they would feed the animals. Do you think they would ever make an exception to the dietary requirements of their primates and feed them something different just for fun? Absolutely never.
No, my question was, would an ape eat meat?
Unlikely. Unlikely.
So it's different from us.
No. Look, you do because you're French, and I do because I'm American, and we do because we're culturally perverted to eat meat from an early age, and we think that it's an okay thing to do. But, as I'm going to explain, if you put a 3-year-old girl in front of a pile of bloody meat, or a bunch of blueberries and strawberries, and wonder where that little girl's going to go for her meal, She's going to always go to the fruit plate, and she's going to never go to the eyeballs and the bloody meat, because that's just not our nature. Now, we get perverted. That is exactly how it works for us. That's why we end up eating meat, because our parents did and their parents did. And for a very short time in the history of humankind, that has happened. Fascinating that it is also is corollary to the development of degenerative diseases in humankind. Okay? Yes?
Isn't it also because of because the way we season it and we make it
That's why you eat
pleasant,
it.
and then
It's the only reason why you're able to swallow it. Because otherwise you would be eating a dead body, and you would not eat a dead body unless you could hide the dead body in something else. Meat doesn't taste like anything except like what you cook it in. Alright, so as I said, I'm going to address all questions at the end. In the meantime, I'm going to carry on. I'm starting now with the physiology of why it is that we don't eat dead bodies. Why we don't do it. Physiologically, I'm talking about the fact that we have a digestive system that is of a primate nature. And so it has a certain structure, and that structure implies certain things. And when we violate that, we're going to pay the price. That's fair. That's just fair. We're not no victims here. Okay? We violate laws of nature. Laws of nature come and say, hey, that was a law. That wasn't a request. Okay? It's fair. One of the evidences, physiologically, that we don't eat dead bodies is that one. There's another one, physiological evidence. You can take it or leave it. To me, it's very obvious, and it's just simple common sense. Which is that animals in nature are born physiologically with what they need to do the job that they need to do on planet Earth. What does that mean, the job they need to do? What it means is that if they're a carnivore, they're born with what they need to kill things. They're born with it. If you're an eagle, and you eat mice, and you eat snakes, and you eat things like that, what does not happen is that when you become 2 years old, you go to the Eagle outlet store and buy your pair of big wings and your pair of hunting talons because you got old enough and you're able to go and buy that stuff. No, you're an eagle. You're born with that stuff. You're born with it. You understand? The name in biology is called endowment. You're endowed with that. That's how it is. You don't need to be given it. That's okay. And all animals in nature that are carnivores are born with the capacity to do the killing and the hunting of the animals that they eat. That's true. Without any other help. They're born with it. A shark, born with its skills. A lion, born with its. Understand? Born with the tools, so to speak. Now, I drive to Colorado a lot because we have a retreat center in Colorado. It's really awesome. Roberta was there. And if you drive from Miami to Colorado, you have to go through the Deep South. Okay? There's no way around it. You're either going through Tennessee, you're going through Louisiana, you're going through Georgia, or all of the above, whatever. But you're gonna hit some Deep South. But when I hit some Deep South on one of my drives, I always like to listen to the local radio because it's just so interesting to me to hear local radio in really far out places like that. You know, different from Miami, that's for sure. So I'm listening to local radio, and I heard this report, and it was of a woman who had just given birth, and the kid's arm was stuck in the mother, and they could not get the kid's arm out. And it had been like 2 days, and nobody could figure out how to do this. And they're talking about the radio at this point, you know, as if it's some big deal. Right? Anyway, when they finally pulled the kid's thing out, he was holding a Remington hunting rifle. You didn't hear about that? That's because it didn't happen. We're not born with hunting rifles. We're not born with bows and arrows, and we're not born with fishing rods and nets. We're not born with absorb that stuff that we use to kill animals. Okay? Ever seen a water buffalo before? Well, I've been to Africa a lot, so I spent a lot of time with water buffalo. Well, you eat cows. Cows came from water buffalo at some point. Let's imagine we got a water buffalo in this room, and you could definitely eat it if you're a carnivore or an omnivore. So I have, how many people in here? 15, whatever that is, 10. So, fine. Well, just surrender all your sharp objects and all your man-made tools and weapons, and I'm going to leave the room, and I'll let you, 12 to 15 people, have at this water buffalo, and you got 10 minutes, go ahead and kill it. Go ahead and kill it, all of you guys, together, as a team. Kill the water buffalo. What if I had 11 or 12 lions in here? What would be going on there? Or 11 or 12 wolves?
We'd be dead.
That animal would be dead, and there would be a feast going on. But what if it was just you guys and a water buffalo? There would be all of you guys would be dead, and the water buffalo would be there confused, and it would be a lot of your blood. Because you just don't have that capacity to kill. No. Physically, physiologically. Your claws and your teeth, and there's a lot of what we call pseudoscience. Alright, y'all understand what pseudoscience means? Pseudoscience means that they use scientific terminology to lie to you and to make you believe something that's not true, but they cloak it in scientific language and hope that you are not smart enough to know the difference. It's called pseudoscience. We hear it all the time. I mean, all the advertisements are laced with pseudoscience. Okay, just ways of framing things. Studies indicate that. Okay, so pseudoscience. But there's a really good one about about physiology, where they say that these things here are canines. You ever heard about that before? That these are your canines? That's hilarious. Okay? I mean, that is one of the funniest, misleading, almost obnoxious things that are told to us, that these are canines as a justification for our meat-eating carnivorous tendencies, because that's why they call these canines. Okay? These are called, you know what these are called? Teeth. Because you ever seen a real canine before? On a dog or a cat? Okay? Canines are made for tearing flesh. Okay? We don't have those. So we have what we have. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, kill a turtle if you grab it and pick it up. And the fact is that if you're starving to death and you're in a forest and you have no food, and you're, in that nature show where you fell out of a helicopter and all of a sudden you're in a place of desolation, and you can catch a turtle or a frog, eat the damn thing. I would, but you got to eat it raw. Because at the end of the day, the conversation about food and health is eat as much of the food raw, not cooked, and the least of the food cooked / destroyed, burned, ruined, morphed, deranged, as possible. And that actually supersedes even the conversation about what kind of food you eat. So whether you're vegetarian or not, really raw food, like raw milk, if you literally suckle from a cow, like literally do that, that would keep you alive and keep you pretty healthy actually. It's the cooked milk, the pasteurized milk that's very dangerous. Now, I'm not saying that we should ever drink milk, as you'll see soon enough. It's really silly to be suckling as an adult another animal. It's very strange. But still, my point is that the conversation is about raw versus cooked at the essence. Okay? Now, the problem, of course, with raw meat, besides all of the things I'm going to mention soon enough, is all of the parasites. So people that think that they're doing well because of eating sushi, first of all, sushi is the most destructive, despicable fishing practice that's destroying our world. And these fish are wild animals. They're not pets. They're not cows. They're not raised to be killed. They're wildlife. It's like going out and hunting in Africa to eat if you go to a sushi restaurant, because this is wildlife in the oceans. So it's to me, it's really unconscionable to eat that stuff. But don't think that you're on some good kick because it's raw. Because then, yeah, it's raw, so you get all the parasites too. All those. That also didn't die because you didn't cook it. So yeah, right, you got raw. Okay, so if you're dying and you're starving, you eat raw meat, you eat a raw egg, you find one in nature, you get up to a tree and you find an egg and you open it up and it's a half-developed fetus. Place to stop, right? So if you climb a tree and find an egg and open it up and eat it raw, you're going to live to see the next day or the next few weeks. Of course, you can go weeks without eating. Okay? So please understand, I know that certain cultures eat certain animal foods, but when they eat animal foods and they're indigenous cultures, they eat the animal foods without cooking them. And that's why those indigenous cultures have any health at all. Okay? The Inuit, the Eskimo, people in the north, they eat everything they eat is raw. Okay? The Sioux, those guys, when they would hunt the buffalo, the first thing they would do when the animal was dead, the first thing is they would get the organs and they would eat them raw. And that would keep them healthy for like years. I mean, you have just the power in the raw vitality. Okay? The Maasai people in Africa mix raw milk with raw blood, and they create a concoction of raw milk and raw blood, and they drink that. They don't do it so much anymore, but that's their heritage, that's their culture. And it keeps their children alive, it keeps them healthy without having to eat for weeks. Because of the vitality in the raw blood, in the raw milk. So I am not here to say that only vegans is the only way to exist as a human being, because we have examples all over the place of cultures that have found themselves in very inhospitable territory. Places that are really difficult for humans to survive in, so either you're going to drink blood and milk or you're going to die. So what's it going to be? Well, it's going to be blood and milk today. Thank you very much. Actually, I have some more. That's what it's going to be. Because that's what it would be for you if you were there. Okay? So, you understand the big picture. I do know all the exceptions to the rules that I'm laying out, but I'm not talking about anything except what kind of species are we, and how do we live in an optimal way that keeps us at a highest state. Okay? And to do that, we have to really align to biology and align to nature and realize that we are primates. And if we are primates, we eat the way that primates eat. We eat according to the laws of nature. And when we do, we feel differently. We feel differently physically, we feel differently mentally, and we feel differently spiritually. Everything just kind of shifts when we align to the forces of nature. And the forces of nature and the forces of God are really the same thing. Okay? So if you want to have it in a spiritual conversation, you can look at it that way. And if you want to have it in a biological conversation, it's the same thing. Okay? Because that's what nature is, expression of the divine. Now, physiologically, we don't have the digestive structure for eating dead animals, and physiologically, we're not born with the tools needed to actually do the job of killing. Okay, fine. That's pretty interesting, I agree. Maybe you haven't thought about it yet. But to me, that's the least of the interesting parts of this talk. That's the least interesting part. What's more interesting to me about us and eating dead animals is the psychological part. Because not only is it true that animals in nature are endowed with the physiological tools needed to kill, okay? They're given that, they're born with that. They're also born with the psychological endowment to be able to kill instinctually and without thought. And I mean instantaneously. Now, let's ask ourselves whether that's true for us. I'm wondering, or you eat a lot of meat, let's see if you think that way. So y'all ever seen baby chickens before? You know the really cute ones? The yellow ones? And they kind of walk in a train, one behind the other, and they're squeaking and they're following the mom. You know, they're imprinted. You know, that word imprinted, they see the mom once and they're like, which is a really funny metaphor. I don't mean to like bring this up, it's kind of like a joke, it's really funny. Is that same exact metaphor is a yoga student and their first yoga teacher. Isn't that true? You know, that imprint, that like, wow, you're so amazing. And it's true though, they are amazing, but it's that first yoga experience. Anyway, here you have these little chickens, okay, and they're walking in, okay, and they're squeaking, squeak, 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 and they walk by everybody, okay. Now, my question is, when you saw the chickens walk through the door, and or when they got near you, whose very first thought at all is to go rip its head off, squeeze the blood and the guts and all of the nice liquid material out of the neck, suck it up, chew on the head and the eyes, swallow it all, and then go for the next one? Whose was that your first thought? Okay? Was that anybody's first thought? Okay? You're not a carnivore and you're not an omnivore. Period. You don't need any more evidence than that. And I'll give you more, but you shouldn't need more. Because what would happen if you put your pet cat in the room with those little chickens? What would happen? How dead would those chickens be and how fast would they be dead? Would there be any hesitation? I mean, would the cat be sitting there in the corner of the room saying, wow, I see chickens. I think I might choose to go and attack those chickens right now. What a good idea it would be for me. Maybe in 10 minutes I might go and attack those chickens. Okay, I'm thinking that. No, the cat sees the chicken. It's already halfway across the room before the door even closes. And when the door closes, it already has a chicken in its mouth and it's wandering off to the corner to swallow it and hurry up doing it so they can eat another one. Because that's how carnivores think. Because they, unlike you, because God gave them the tools to be this way, psychological tools, they are natural-born killers. Carnivorous animals are natural-born killers. You're not a natural-born killer. That's not your nature. You do not see, I'm guessing, that you don't see a bird fly by and wonder how high you can jump. Can you catch it and eat it? You don't. Even if you're hungry, you don't think that way. But a dog does. A dog sees a bird fly by, it's just trying to figure out its height and its jumping, and it's like a cat, okay? You ever seen what happens when you put an eagle in the same room as a mouse? I mean, it's just like, wow! The direction, the consciousness about the killing, the one-pointedness, the psychology. They're natural-born killers psychologically. You don't think like that. You don't think about killing every single animal that you see because you're hungry. So the evidence psychologically, which is so interesting and so obvious and clear, is that you were not born to kill. Because if any animal on this earth that is born to kill can do it without hesitation and without thought, and does it instantaneously. Every single one. Omnivores and carnivores alike. Because if they're made to eat meat at all, they're made to kill. We're not made to kill. We don't think that way. You can write your question down and I'll address it at the end. Okay? You understand? We're not natural-born killers. We don't have the psychological capacity. Doesn't mean we can't kill things if we have to. Okay? But does it come naturally to you to kill? No. Alright, fine. Let's think of something else that psychologically would demonstrate this. You take that water buffalo, the one you guys couldn't kill. Well, the lion's got a good handle on it. Well, the water buffalo's not dead. Its heart's still beating. It's on the ground. It's bleeding to death. Sorry guys, you're going to have to move your mats pretty soon. The blood's going to start coming at you. And there's a lot of blood in a water buffalo. But the heart's still beating. And the eyes are starting to fade, but he's still alive, you know? He's still with us, at least for like 45 seconds. All right, so who's going to jump into the body and start eating the heart while the heart's still beating? Who wants to do that? Any carnivore, any omnivore, any animal would do that eats meat in nature. And that would be exactly what they would want to do. Even a baby. Because they have the psychological capacity not only to do the actual killing, but to want to be there. Okay? That's just the nature of animals that have that capacity, and we don't have that capacity. Otherwise, you would want to do that. The reason why you eat a sandwich with meat on it, mostly, is because usually, at least for you guys in this country, they chop the legs off, they chop the head off, they rip the bones out, they take the organs somewhere else, and they just give you something that looks like lettuce and a tomato. Stuffed bread around it, and it's all the same to you. You have been dislodged and isolated from what you're really doing. And when it's going to come time for you all to do what the maturing process is all about, it's called taking responsibility for your actions. So realizing that if you eat that stuff, you are the butcher. You are the killer. Of course you are, because you are the market. And the market creates the demand, and the demand is the only reason why fish and other animals are being killed right now. Okay, so psychologically, it is what it is. If you were really a carnivore or really an omnivore, every single small animal that came your way, you would already try to kill it. Like a cat does when it sees a bird in a cage. You ever seen that? Cat looking at a bird in a cage? You can't get that cat to eat or drink water or do anything, because it is not going to take its eyes off that bird for anything. Because the only thing it's thinking is, I have to kill you. I don't even know why. All I know is that you have to die. Even if I'm not hungry. Because that's cat mind. You don't have that mind. You're thinking, wow, you're a really beautiful bird. That's primate mind. Because that's what God gave you. Okay? Fine. Interesting. Kind of interesting. Now, the spiritual part of this talk. Having fun?
Yeah.
Woohoo! Smile. Alright. Your life's about to be better. The spiritual part of this talk for me is the most important part, especially in the context of a yoga teacher training. As future spiritual and healing leaders in the world, this is the part that really matters the most, is the spiritual aspect of this conversation. This is the part that matters the most. The reason why I eat the way that I eat is not because of the obvious physiological evidence that I'm a freaking monkey or an ape. I know that. That's obvious. That's okay? It's not the psychological stuff. The reason why I do what I do is for these reasons here. These are the ones that are unshakable. Okay? These are the ones that matter for me. Okay? And as a yoga teacher, these are the ones that matter. Okay? The other ones are interesting evidence, so that you understand biologically that it is the right thing to do to shift what you're doing with food. But if you want to be a yoga teacher and a leader and an example, then this is the conversation that is going to have the most import. In yoga, there's something called ahimsa. Okay? We haven't talked a lot about it yet, but we're going to talk more and more about it. So it's the primary spiritual law. Ahimsa, and it means thou shalt not cause injury, thou shalt not cause suffering on any other animal or any other living being. It's the primary and fundamental tenet of the Vedic tradition, ahimsa. There is no way to violate the law of God more than to cause suffering on another animal. There is nothing more anti-divinity than to hurt something. Now, ahimsa is a law that you guys all have instilled in your being. It's instilled in you. However, there's a very, very strange filter taking place in when you are allowing ahimsa to come out. In other words, when you're allowing your mastery of ahimsa to come out. So you do understand about ahimsa so long as the animal falls under a certain category for you, a certain classification, then ahimsa makes perfect sense. But if the animal or the being does not fall under that category, then you seem to not apply ahimsa, the ahimsa that you know exists for real. Well, let's find out if for you, if I'm right. I guess ahimsa is instilled in you. I'm guessing that. Let's find out if I'm right. Okay? Anyone have a dog? I had a dog recently. I'm not going to talk about my dog being in this situation here. And I certainly don't want to use Zorro for this little example, because Zorro is this big. And two boxers, well, we can't use them because they're your two boxers. So let us instead go and pick out an animal from the shelter and pick out a dog from the shelter and bring them in. They're still obviously an amazing dog. First thing that happens is the dog runs around and says hi to everybody and wags his tail. He's so happy, you know, it's a dog and a bunch of people. It couldn't be any happier, this dog. And then eventually it sits here next to the camera. It's just wagging his tail, had some water, lips hanging out, tongue hanging out. Dog. Okay, fine. And although I'm not a democratic teacher, usually I generally like to, you know, tell you what to do and you're going to do it, and that's how it goes. In this case, I'm going to be democratic. I'm going to be generous and give you a couple of options. So this is a democracy now. You get to choose. Everybody gets their own choice. Free will, it's called. Okay? On my right side, your left, is the baseball bats. And on my left side is the golf clubs. You can pick. You can choose. It's your choice. It's okay. You can select. I don't judge your selection, but you got to pick one. And everybody has to come up and whack as hard as you can this dog. But there's only one rule: you can't kill it. You're not allowed to kill it. The only thing you're allowed to do is hit it as hard as you can, but not kill it. So that hopefully at the end of it all, the only thing we got left is a dog that is screaming with every one of its bones broken, and it can't even move because it's just shattered, but it's still alive. Who's first, everybody? Who's first? Now, I just created a scenario in you that you couldn't even wrap your head around.
Horrifying.
It's horrifying because something inside of you knows that doing that to an animal is unbelievably wrong. You don't even know why. You just know that it's wrong. You don't even have to think about it. It's unbelievably wrong. But the fact is that it is exactly the same thing to kill a fish. And I mean exactly the same thing to kill a pig. Exactly the same thing to injure a goat or a cow or anything, to cause any pain to any animal ever is exactly the same as this dog. 100% the same. And that's why, for us, first things first, ahimsa. We don't do that. There's something that's not okay about that. And it's not okay with dogs, and it's not okay with pigs, and it's not okay with cows, and it's not okay to do that to another human being either. It's not okay to do that to anything. Or it's not okay to injure and to hurt. Okay, even if it's verbally. That is the first rule of living a spiritual existence. Thou shalt not cause suffering and pain. Now, Judeo-Christian culture, right? Most of us have grown up in that paradigm. Some of us, okay? So we have what? 10 Commandments? Heard of those guys? Okay? I think it's the 6th or the 4th one. Which one is it? Which is the 6th one, right? Okay, but have you studied the Aramaic text? You know that the Bible was first written in Aramaic, the really old like, you know, Middle Eastern language, Aramaic, yeah, even before Hebrew. Aramaic, the original. So have you read the Aramaic Ten Commandments? Thou shalt not kill. How does that sentence end? I mean, what's the rest of it? Because I know how it's been translated, how it's been interpreted by the church that we grew up in, and how it's interpreted is what? Thou shalt not kill other human beings. That's the interpretation, right? So it must be somewhere in the text that that's what God said, right? So it must be there in the Aramaic version where he said people or human beings. It ain't there. The only thing that is in that commandment is thou shalt not kill. And there is absolutely no qualification. There's no, except for all the animals. God's law is crystal clear. Thou shalt not kill. The same thing as the entire premise of spirituality in India and all over the world. It's ahimsa. Don't cause pain and suffering. You know it exists. You wouldn't beat the crap out of a dog. You wouldn't beat the crap out of a cow either. But you'd let someone else beat the crap out of a cow for you, and then you eat the damn cow. I mean, so my point is that as adults, now we start to take our head out of the sand. We start to stop playing that game of hide and seek, the one that we played when we were a kid, when we hide behind nothing and close our eyes and say, you don't see me, you don't see me. But they're standing out in the open. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, kid, I do see you. You know, but just open your eyes and you'll see that everyone can see you. And so that's what we're all doing as immature little kids. I don't see what's going on, so you must not see that I'm not doing. It's immaturity. Okay? My job is to raise your level of awareness and consciousness so that you no longer are subject to your own lack of awareness and then pay a pretty potentially steep price. In either case, who's paying a price is all the living beings out there for your unconsciousness. And if you want to be a yoga teacher, you have to understand the rules. Now, there's something interesting about this. The first rule in yoga, in the 8 limb system, the first thing is ahimsa. That means this. That's the first thing. God bless you. God bless you. The first thing. The last thing, the last phase is called samadhi. Samadhi means super consciousness, and we're going to talk about the 8 limbs in detail, but this is an introduction. Samadhi means super consciousness. It's also called enlightenment. It means that you know the truth, and you know who you are, and when you open your eyes and see the world, you're not confused. Super consciousness, you just know how it's all going down, and you're placing it all, and you're at deep peace. Samadhi, fine. Now here's the interesting part. What they say, and this is true, is that nobody can understand, or let me use a better word, nobody can realize ahimsa until after samadhi. Whoa, whoa. Well, what does that imply? What does that mean? It means that in the beginning, I'm telling you about ahimsa, and it's an intellectual conversation. I'm giving you intellectual reasons. I'm talking to your brain. Okay? Your brain's analyzing this. Okay? And so that's the beginning, because you guys are in the beginning parts of your spiritual path. Okay? And so for you, this intellectual conversation, and you're going to put in your tapas, your effort, and you're going to, do that, and the transformation is going to come for you, and then you're going to have a different vision. Now, once you experience samadhi, once you realize that all is one, and I am not talking about that in words, I am talking about that as true. All is one. All living beings are of a divine nature. God is everywhere. Once you realize that, and I am not, as I said, this is not intellectual anymore. I'm talking about you experiences in your life. This is how you see the world. Once you see the world that way, the idea of killing something, or being responsible for killing something, or being responsible for hurting something, you have to be kidding, because I will never do that. Why? Because that's God. I don't hurt God. I don't hurt divine creatures. That is not what happens. That's a living being. So, ahimsa is first, but the fact is, until you're enlightened and realize that the fact that everything is one, the fact that everything is of godly nature, the fact that everything is divine, that's not just an intellectual conversation. That is when you see a tree, you're literally just saying thanks to God. When you see an ant go by, you see divine energy. Even a cockroach, you see God. Even things like a pigeon, things that are so common to you. Even a rat, no matter what it is. I'm not saying you need to keep it in your house. I'm not saying you don't call the exterminator. But I'm saying if you have to call the exterminator or do something like that, you are really apologizing first because you realize that you don't want to have to kill this thing. Okay? In an ideal world, you keep your house really clean and you avoid that stuff. Okay? But the fact is, God is everywhere. And to hurt any creature at all is the number one violation of spiritual law. So, that's first. Second, is that if you want to experience light and life and divine experience of well-being and peace and fulfillment, well then you have to have life energy circulating in your body. You have to have divine energy circulating. In other words, you are what you eat. And you are what you eat not just physiologically, but energetically. You have to be able to have flowing energy. Things that are not blocking it up. No garbage, no residue, no material. So if you want to experience the highest states of consciousness, the ones that are the most fulfilling, you cannot have nervous death energy in your body, because nervous death energy is going to get transferred into your experience if you eat it. Every animal before it dies is completely terrified. Okay? I mean terrified like you would be if you were on a conveyor belt. Okay? You're on a conveyor belt. And 5 ahead of you, that is your great aunt. She just got whacked. Okay? And, she happens to be off to the side screaming and bleeding for 5 minutes straight because those slaughterhouses and anything that involves killing animals, the idea that you can kill animals in a spiritual way is an abomination. That's why the laws of castram are the greatest compromise ever done by humankind. The laws of kosher food. That is an abomination of truth. That you could put a spiritual label on the killing of animals is unacceptable. Unbelievable. Okay? So, every animal before it dies is terrified. Just like you would be. Then your mom. Oh, and then your dad, your sister, and then you. Because all those animals are family in that farm, in that herd. They're all brothers and sisters. That's their herd, that's their family, those are their people. That's their community. Well, he just got taken out. Now you, and now it's your turn. Well, as that knife is coming your way, or the electrical prod, or the guys are coming after you, when that happens, you are scared to death. And you create a death scream where that's your final scream, the one that pollutes the energy of the universe forever in a very negative, chaotic frequency, that one, and floods the meat and the blood and all of the fluids with adrenaline and fear, and then you eat that. And you wonder why you don't feel so good. Well, because not only are what you eat, so you're eating garbage, cooked, disgusting, animal, meaty, nasty protein. Not only that, you're also eating the energetic fear, you're also eating the adrenaline, so if you want to experience high states of consciousness as a yogi, one of the most important things to do is stop eating dead animals, stop eating dead bodies. Now, one of my favorite teachers, masters, is Dharma Mitra. Y'all know who Dharma Mitra is? Have you heard of him? He's a guru. He's a saint. He lives in New York City. I am graced to be his student. He says a wonderful thing to a lot of his classes, and so I will repeat it to you guys, what he said. He said, go home, everybody, and when you do, please return your refrigerator into a refrigerator again, instead of what it presently is serving as, a morgue. It's a morgue. It's a cold storage for dead bodies. That's what morgues are. Cold storage houses for dead bodies. And it's funny that it has drawers. it even resembles a morgue, okay? So you pull out the dead cow, and you pull out the poor dead fish, and you know, that's why your refrigerator stinks, because it's just got death, you know? That was just a funny thing. Go home and return your refrigerator to not become a morgue anymore. I thought that was funny. I'm the only one in the room who thought that was funny, but maybe not. Okay, it's funny. It's officially good. Anyway, now there's an irony and a paradox here, okay? And let's just be aware of it, okay? There's always a relationship between things. Any two things that are together, that are in a relationship, there's an interchange between the two things. That's why the relationship exists. You get something from them, they get something from you. Something is going on there, so thus we're in a relationship. That's the nature of relationship. Fine. So we are in a relationship with animals, and we are murdering millions and millions and millions of animals every week, okay, to sustain our thirst for blood and flesh, okay? So we have these death camps set up all over the world, all over the country, these death camps where they get the animals by the hundreds of thousands go in and they do not come out, okay? By the way, if a cow makes it to the knife, it's human food. But if it falls off the conveyor belt right before the knife, it's dog food. So you know. So if they can just keep it on its legs just another second longer, it goes from being dog food to being human food. Because these animals are all full of tumors. They all have leukemia. They all have cancer. They're all the most unhealthy things in the world. They're disgusting things. And so to eat the cancer, you are what you eat. You're eating tumors. You are literally eating tumors. That's not a joke. Okay? Anyway, we're in a relationship with these animals, and we're killing hundreds of thousands of these animals every minute, every hour. So there must be some relation, there must be some benefit. Okay? So I see the part of it. Okay, we're killing these animals. And so I see that the animals are all dying. That's their role. Their role is to get killed and to suffer and die. So what do we get out of this deal? What is it that why are we doing this? That's my question to you. Anyone know what do we get out of this?
Disease.
Yes. That's what we get. That's the gift that we get. We get early death, disease, pain, and suffering. Now, if an alien species were here observing us scientifically, and they were taking notes, a scientific alien species, you know? Who knows if they're not? I mean, I love when people ask me, do you believe in aliens? I'm like, oh, you mean, do I believe in life in faraway planets? What the heck do you think we are? We're a life form on a faraway planet, of course, you know? But if there was an intelligent alien out there and observing us scientifically, and observing what we're doing, and they take notes, and they're like, okay, well, they seem to be killing and causing a lot of pain and suffering to millions and millions of animals every week. Noting that, I'm noting a lot of pain and suffering going on in these slaughter. I'm noticing that, and then I'm noticing that what they're getting, what these humans are getting from this pain and suffering and death and disease and horror, what they're getting is actually death themselves, early disease and unhealthiness. We as a species, by the aliens, get labeled, what? What do we get labeled? Clinically insane. Clinically insane. That's the only label for the behavior that what are we doing? We're killing all these animals, we're causing all this pain and suffering, when the only thing we're getting out of it is our own disease, early death and sufforation? That doesn't make any sense. Only the stupidest species in the world in the universe would do that. And we think we're smart. We think we're the smart ones. We're not smart. We're not behaving smart. We're behaving very, 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 very dumb. As a herd. The herd is behaving dumb. That's why the herd is all sick and fat and unhealthy and unhappy. All my parents' friends that are in their early 60s, their best friends, they're all dead. They're all already died in their 60s. Okay? We know of the stories of the people in their 40s and the people in their 30s now. And now, all the teenage cancers. We see that the herd is not really looking so hot. And that direction is interesting direction, and that's certainly the culturally easy way to go. Just eat what everyone else is eating at the dinner table when you go to the steakhouse. Just do what everyone else is doing. Follow the herd. Go ahead, follow the herd. But the thing is, what does the herd look like? Where's the herd going? In this case, the herd really looks bad, and they're going over the cliff. They're actually going over the cliff. Now, what I am saying is that we don't have to go over the cliff. Now, I'm not saying anything that I've said today so that you can live forever. Are you going to live forever, anybody here? No. So are my thoughts on the subject, or my evidences, or this entire conversation designed to let you live forever? No. It's designed so that while you're here on this planet, you feel amazingly, amazingly connected and enlightened and with well-being. That's the yoga part of this. It's not so that you live to be 120. It's so that while you're here, because who knows what's going to come up, but it's that while you're here you feel amazing and that you feel connected and that you feel enlightened, and that you feel alive. Here. Really here, not some. So what I'm saying is that we can take our heads up. We can see that those first 500 animals have gone over the cliff. And we can say, you know what? I don't want to go over the cliff. I don't like that direction that everyone's going. The direction of diabetes and cancer and leukemia and tumors and everyone being unhealthy and everyone being fat. That world of America, I don't really dig that world so much. That's not an ideal destination for me. So I'm going to at least be aware that the main reason that people head down that direction is because they don't know what the heck they're doing with what goes in here. That's all is really the main thing. Okay? So I'm going to say, no, there's another direction over there. I do not have to go over the cliff. I see a different way. Whether I choose to walk down that way, that's up to me. But at least I know the way's over there. That's my job. You get it? You understand? Okay. Because prevention is better than cure. You trust me, guys, you don't want the diagnoses. We don't want that. Okay? You don't want that. Prevention is better than cure. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, I don't know how I have to be more specific about this. You don't want to wait and do stupid stuff for a lot longer because you seem to be getting away with it for the first 20-something, 30-something years of your life. You got away with it. Well, that's wonderful. Give thanks to God for that. Now, what we'd say is, put your faith in God and tie up your camel. Now tie up your camel. Start to now do things with a bit of responsibility attached to it, a bit of awareness, a bit of, some intelligence. Not just, you got lucky because you were young. Well, good. We all maybe did get lucky because we were young. A lot of us didn't. Okay? Prevention is better than cure. So, if we can, over the course of time, start to implement this stuff, it will be wiser. Teacher training, you don't have a choice. Okay? We're going to talk about protein and dairy. Okay? Let's take 5 minutes. Do not do anything except go to the bathroom and come back. Has anyone ever heard of kinesiology before? You know what kinesiology is in terms of, I don't mean kinesiology versus anatomy, I mean kinesiological muscle testing in order to discover the truth of something. Have you ever heard of that before?
Yeah.
It's a very important book called Power versus Force that you guys should read. If you haven't read it yet, it explains what kinesiology is and why it is what it is and how true it is. Anyway, with kinesiological muscle testing, you can ask a question to the universe. And if the muscle, literally the muscle of your body, stays strong as the question gets asked, that means true or affirmative. And if, when the question gets asked, if the question is asked the correct way, to the correct person, everything's right, and the question gets asked, and the answer is no or false, the arm goes down. And it is foolproof. Okay, when you have the right questioner and the right receiver, and the right question being worded the right way, which is not hard to get that stuff to happen. Okay, it's always right. Like my chiropractor, for example, uses kinesiology to figure out which bones are out of place. So I stick my arm out, and he touches here, here, and he goes down the line. And as soon as he touches one that's out, my arm shoots down. And then he knows which one's out. Okay, so you can use kinesiological muscle testing for a lot of things. A lot of things. Really interesting. Okay, well, they, with kinesiology, asked the question, what is the most spiritual thing a person can do? Like, what is the singular action that's the most spiritual thing? Is it going to church? Is it giving money to the church? Or is it, chanting mantras? Or is it meditating? That was the question. The answer given, which is the answer, the most spiritual thing, the thing that's most in alignment to God that we can do in the world, is picking up an insect off the ground and moving it out of the way of your path. That action of preserving a life, of being conscious and being careful and realizing the sacredness of a life, that action is the number one. More than chanting mantras and more than anything else. Okay? So just so you know. Okay? Now, talk about protein and milk. Okay? Let's talk about dairy first. And then we'll talk about protein second, because I know that that's what's on everyone's mind. It's protein, because you all have been asked a million times, and then you're going to ask me, of course, where do you get your protein? You ever heard of that question before? Oh, where do you get your protein? It's like, talk about something that just, gets reactivated out of people's head as soon as they hear anything about that you don't even need, or that you might even think about not even need. Oh, we're even thinking about it. Oh, then where would you get your protein? The whole thing is very, very, very funny. So what we're going to do is talk about protein in a way that you understand more about protein than anyone has ever imagined understanding, so that no one can ever talk to you about protein again, because they're talking to an expert and they're an amateur. That's what's going to happen at the end of this talk. Okay? So, but first we're going to talk about milk, very briefly. Let's imagine that we have a pregnant, well, not pregnant, she just gave birth. Okay? Jennifer here, she just gave birth. Okay? She's a phantom student of ours. She gave birth a few months ago, and she's breastfeeding her baby, and she's watching the talk. She thinks this talk is very interesting, by the way. She's riveted. Thank you very much. So she's here breastfeeding her baby, and now let's imagine that I did not give you guys a break 10 minutes ago. I just gave you guys a break. You ate a little food, drank a little water, right? You replenished. Yeah, hope that was fun. Okay, well, what happened if I didn't give you that break? And we're all sitting here, and you're all getting a little edgy, a little anxious, a little thirsty. Some of you don't have water, a little hungry. That's fine. I say it's no problem, really, because Jennifer's here. And I say, Jennifer, I got at least 7 or 8 hungry women here, and I was wondering if we could borrow one of your breasts, because these guys are hungry. Who is going to be first, because you're hungry, to go and suck on her tit? That's what it is, man. That's a biological word. okay? Who's gonna suck? Who's hungry is gonna get milk? How many people, when I bring up that opportunity as an adult, you guys are all adults, everyone here over 12? Everyone here over 6? Yeah? Most everyone here is over 6 years old? Okay, so you have been weaned, okay? So you're not an adult at 6, but you've been weaned off of your dairy, okay? But we're all definitely over 6. Most of us are over 14 even. Okay, fine. So let's say that we're adults. Okay. So as adults, I just gave you an invitation to suckle off of Jennifer here, who's just sitting right next to us. Don't worry, we'll cover you with the blanket. That's funny, guys. You're so laughing at that kind of stuff. If you can fit. Okay, now, is there anything more bizarre? Okay, now I've been to Africa a lot. I have never seen, ever, an adult elephant suckling off of another adult elephant. You ever seen that before? A National Geographic, an adult animal suckling off another adult? Okay, well, have you ever seen in nature an adult animal suckling off an adult animal of another species? Yeah, that happens all the time in National Geographic. You see the ostrich is finding a way to suckle the giraffe. You know, and then the giraffe has to suckle the rhino, and that's not good for its neck. And so that's why it has a giraffe chiropractor. You know, because the giraffe having to suckle the neck. You don't see these things in nature because they're violations of nature. They don't ever happen. You don't ever cross species and suckle the milk of another species. That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, really. Now, it just doesn't make any sense. And as one of the definitions of being a mammal is that you have hair and you have warm blood. But another definition is that you drink milk as an infant. But part of that definition is that there comes a point when you get weaned. You all know what that word means? Weaned? It means no more dairy. You are all dairy eaters as infants and babies up to a certain amount of years. Some cultures say 2, some say longer. Some say it could be as long as 5 years. Okay, that's what it is. But there's going to be a point when it's over. And when it's over, you don't go back. Okay? You don't go back. You go forward. And now you eat real food. But lactational milk is designed for infants. It's designed for baby animals. So a cow's milk is designed for what? Baby cows. It's designed for growing enormous animals with really small brains that have hoofs. Is that what you want to be? Huge, small-brained, hoofed animal? No, that's not what we want to be. So why would you want to drink cow's milk? Cow's milk designed by God to grow cows. Human milk designed to grow humans. They're very different. Human milk, cow's milk, they're not the same. Not even close. Okay? So it's very, very odd to be suckling as an adult another adult of our own species. It's even more odd to suckle a different species. Okay? I'm aware of Ayurvedic determination that milk is a sattvic food. Okay? Historically, in India, there were no refrigerators. Okay? There was also a lot of people and a lot of food shortages. And there could come a point when the cow crossing your front, village with its baby and being treated well, because cows are treated well in India, okay? You can't touch a cow. Okay, I was just there a few weeks ago, and the cows are all over the street. You can pet them, you can do whatever you want, but you can't hurt them. Okay? So they could take the milk. This is thousands of years ago. This is when Ayurveda was created. They could take that raw milk, drink that raw milk, feed it to their kids, and their family will live. That's called a blessing. That's a blessing, right? When some animal comes and delivers something for you, and then your family lives as a result of that. So there are historical reasons why dairy food in Indian culture has a sattvic quality. But that's taken 100% raw, like I already mentioned. And that's done without treating the cow poorly. Okay, and that's done for cultural reasons as well. None of those are in play here in the United States or any other Western country. Now, in the dairy farms, a female will have a calf, and then she'll start to lactate, right? And then you're going to end up drinking the milk or eating the cheese. You do that. It's humans drinking the milk and the cheese. They're hooked up to some machine. Humans drinking the milk and then ultimately the cheese. Fine. So what does the baby cow drink? Anyone know? What does the baby cow drink? Well, I know you never thought about that part of it, but let's just consider for 1 second. What's the baby cow drink? Anyone know? Water? It's a good idea. That's an interesting thought, huh? Yeah, well, the baby cows are not really thought about too much, except for the veal industry. You see, the baby cow, as soon as the calf is born, okay? You all know this is a mammal, like you. Calf is born, baby, mother, and calf about to make that smell connection, the one that is a lifelong bond, and the mother's about to start licking the calf and showing love, and because this is a mammal, like you are, okay? Oh, but wait a minute, right before the mother is able to lick the calf for the first time, metal hooks come in and grab this little baby and drag it out as the mother's screaming. The mother's screaming, "Where are you taking my baby?" The calf is screaming, "Isn't that my mother? Where, what, huh?" And then the calf, which is a baby, like your baby or like a puppy or any other baby that you want to have an emotional relationship to, gets put into a box, hammered closed, which is the same size as the actual calf, so it cannot stand up. It's force-fed with tubes, some weird thing, for a few weeks. It shits, it defecates in that box. It pukes in that box. It urinates in that box. Everything happens in that box. And then eventually they open that box and kill the thing. And that is called fancy gourmet food known as veal. This is what people call gourmet eating. You know that there's something that it's almost illegal all around the world, but in France, I don't know that they made it illegal. It's this thing they do with the geese.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. How can that be legal? I mean, they force feed geese to the point where one of their organs, because of failure, because of like heart failure basically, their liver becomes like whatever it is. And then that's like gourmet food. It's like the more you torture an animal, that's the more gourmet it is. People are like, "Oh, if I don't go to a steakhouse, I'm not eating good." I'm like, what are you talking about? You're not eating good. The only way you could eat good is if you don't go to a steakhouse and eat dead animals. Eat disgusting, rotting corpse flesh, nasty death stuff. That's called eating good, eating according to the laws and the bounty of nature. Because it's bountiful, beyond belief bountiful. Okay, the plant kingdom, so bountiful. Okay, so dairy and veal are the same industry. Okay, now one more thing, just so you don't think that this is about killing little baby cows. It's not about that. It's about dairy itself. It's about something called casein. Y'all know what casein is? It's the protein found in milk. Milk has a specific protein called casein and a specific sugar called lactose. Okay? Lactose is a sugar found in milk. When you're an infant, you have lactase, which is an enzyme designed to break down lactose. When you're no longer an infant, you do not make lactase anymore. That's why lactose becomes so difficult for you to deal with when you're an adult. But the other thing that's in milk is called casein, and that's a protein. And they have the biggest study on nutrition ever done in the history of the world so far is called the China Study. It's a book and you should read it if you have not read it yet. It's called the China Study. And in it is more information, contemporary information that would help you understand the epidemic, what's going on in this world a lot, in the context of his discussion of this study called the China Study, where he studied over 1 million people for over 20 or 30 years. It's a massive landmark study. The strongest thing that it found a lot of things, but the strongest thing that it found was a correlation between cancer, between tumor growth, bless you, between tumor growth and casein being the #1 association that they discovered in all of these people. Tumor and cancer growth and casein being basically a great way to grow tumors is just to have a lot of casein. That's what they figured out. Okay? So the #1 factor that creates cancer is the protein found in milk. So this is not just about taking care of baby cows. That might be one reason. Another reason is that dairy is extremely destructive. It also causes osteoporosis, by the way. It causes, not cured. Oh my God, but that's exactly the opposite of everything I've always been told. I thought I'm supposed to eat dairy to cure osteoporosis. Well, what the heck are you talking about? Well, dairy is acidic. Meaning that when dairy is done with your digestion, it has an acidic effect. That means it turns your blood acidic. Okay? That means you drink dairy, your blood went more acidic. Well, your blood's not allowed to go more acidic. If it goes more acidic, that's called you die. So, in order for your blood not to go more acidic, your body does an emergency maneuver by sending out phosphorus and magnesium and calcium ions out of your big bones and into your blood chemistry to fight against the acidic nature of the dairy. To neutralize your blood, your body sends millions of alkaline ions out of your bones and thus weakens your bones to deal with the dairy. You never see osteoporosis ever in cultures that do not take dairy in adulthood. Osteoporosis does not exist in cultures that do not take dairy into adulthood. Okay? Obviously osteoporosis also has to do with exercise, has to do with keeping your bones strong. But it very much has to do with not weakening the density of your bones by eating acidic food, of which the most important culprit is dairy, cheese and milk. Okay? Does that make sense, dairy? Okay? It's just really nasty. Okay? I mean, it is what it is. You can think it's normal to eat, but you think about what it is and you realize, go ahead and suckle off Jennifer here. It's just like, whoa! Okay? You don't need to be suckling off of other mammals when you're an adult. Bottom line. Okay? Let's talk about protein. Okay, protein. First thing about protein is that the word itself is a smoke screen and has no real value. And the fact that it's being thrown around the way that it's being thrown around is kind of the problem because nobody understands what it is or what it means. So let's first know that the word protein itself is not important. Okay? The word that is important is called amino acids. Amino acids are what we're interested in talking about. The word protein itself is simply a function of the amino acids, so we can go back a step and talk about what's really important instead of having to call it protein. We're going to talk about amino acids. There are 20 amino acids. Amino acids are what they call, you've heard it in 7th grade biology, the building blocks. Heard that before? The building blocks? Well, amino acids are the functional components that create protein. They're like letters of an alphabet that spell all the words. Well, all the words are spelled off the same 20-something letters of the alphabet. Well, all the protein on planet Earth is constructed off the same 20 amino acids. There are only 20. Every protein from the time of the dinosaurs to 10 million years from now, if it's on Earth, it's going to be made from one of 20 amino acids. Okay? There's only 20. If you have your 20 amino acids through your dietary regimen, if you have access to all 20 amino acids, and those amino acids are not cooked, they're not deranged, they have integrity. If you have all 20 amino acids and they're not cooked, nobody can talk to you about protein. Because protein is simply constructed by your body once your body has all of the amino acids that it needs. Your body builds itself. Your human protein is constructed from amino acids in the same way that animal protein is constructed from amino acids. So, cows eat grass, hopefully. Jeez, what they eat these days. They get fed cement and they get fed other cows. But they're supposed to eat grass. And from the grass, they extract the amino acids, and from the amino acids floating in the blood, a cow protein gets built. That's why a baby cow gets bigger, right? It gets bigger because more cow protein is coming into existence. It's getting more massive. That cow protein is getting constructed because the baby cow is eating. That makes sense? You understand? So you can either say that God is constructing the protein, or you can say the cow itself is constructing the protein. But one thing that we're going to agree on right now is that that protein has been constructed. When you eat it, if you eat it, it's been previously constructed. That's something that we all agree about. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to eat a chicken, it already made its own protein from its amino acids. You're going to eat a cow, it already made it, it's been previously constructed. Now why I say that is, you have been told in your life that you need to eat protein, animals, dead animals, to get your protein. That's what you're told by doctors and nutritionists. You've got to eat meat for protein. You're told that. Well, what is that really saying? That means you have to eat previously constructed protein in order for you to get your protein. That's what they're saying. Okay? Well, let's ask this just real quick. What would happen if you actually used the protein in the form that you ate it in? So let's say you eat chicken a lot. What would happen if you used the protein in the form that you ate it? Huh? Well, I don't know. You might start growing feathers. You might start growing a beak. You might start looking like a chicken. But why don't you look like a chicken? I mean, some people do. If they didn't have chicken, they actually do start looking like one. But you know, assuming that that doesn't happen, why not? Why does it not happen? Because your body takes what would be called constructed chicken protein and does its best to make it into amino acids. Once it's, that's what digestion is. That's what digestion is. It's the breakdown process of more complex into simpler molecules. Well, the simplest things here are the amino acids. Once it's broken down, your body then starts all over again and builds a human. Because a human looks different from a chicken. Although the same amino acids are used, we don't look the same because we're human. That's different than chicken. But we are constructed off the same base. But in order for us to build ourselves, we have to go to amino acid level. So, the idea that you need to eat previously constructed protein in order to get your amino acids is a huge, huge misleading dietary advice. Huge. The biggest one that's actually been perpetrated upon you. Okay? And I'll prove it to you. Okay? And that's one thing about this talk. Don't take my word for anything. Okay? I'm not here to convince you. I'll either prove it to you or I won't. But don't take my word for it. Okay? They tell you better eat previously constructed protein. Okay? First of all, where does an elephant get its protein from? Yeah. Does an elephant go to GNC and get the... Do y'all know how big those protein things are? Do you know how big the size for the elephants are? You have no idea how big those are. I mean, they're like, they're like a halo, When the elephants leave the GNC in their trunk, those protein powders, man, they're elephant size. Because otherwise, how's an elephant going to get its protein? Oh, wait a minute, the elephant happens to be the strongest, most massive animal on legs. And where does it get its protein from? Well, it gets its protein from the earth, from the probiotic microorganisms, and from the amino acids. That's where it gets its everything, including its vitamin B12. All of it. Doesn't take a vitamin B12 supplement. Okay? And elephants don't eat other elephants. And elephants don't go hunting once a year to make sure that they get their protein. Elephants never go hunting. A gorilla can bench press the equivalent, I think they say 4,000 pounds. A gorilla is so strong that it has a strength capacity to bench press 4,000 pounds. A gorilla will blow an insect off the fruit that it's eating. It doesn't want it. It's not looking for protein. A gorilla lives according to its nature, and it is stronger than you can possibly imagine. What happens when things are living according to nature? Okay? So, amino acids, if you're given your amino acids, you're going to build yourself up from scratch. You're going to build your own human protein. Now here's the funny thing about what they're telling you. And I'm going to ask you what you think. Okay? I am a logical person. It's my nature. I have the capacity to transcend logic at any time, but it's my first filter. Like if you don't pass the logic test, I'm going to at least question it even more. I really like logic. Logic's enough for most stuff. So here's the logical thing I'm going to tell you. If you think that what I'm going to tell you is not a logical truth, you're welcome to tell me that you don't think that this is true. What I'm about to tell you now. That there is a straight line, direct, linear argument between what they're telling you that you need to eat protein that's already been constructed. Okay? So that's the argument, right? Nutritionists and doctors say, eat meat, get protein. Eat fish, get protein. Eat something, get protein. So they're saying eat previously constructed protein. That's here on the floor. I draw a straight line to a different argument, but it's a connected argument. And what I'm going to say now is, okay, you need to eat previously constructed protein. Fine. So, then, what actually is the ideal protein for you to be eating? Don't answer it if you know. But if you don't know, what's the ideal protein for you to be eating if you need to eat previously constructed protein in order for you to get your protein? You got it. You figured it out, huh? You had one of those aha moments. Yeah, the best one is other people. And if you think that you can argue against that, you can't. You can wish that you could, but you simply can't, because that's exactly what they're saying. Previously constructed protein, so that you can make your own protein? Why would you want to skip steps? Why would you want chicken protein if you're going to have to make human protein, if you're going to get it previously constructed anyway? Just eat the human protein. Just eat other people. That's what they're telling you. And if you don't see that fallacy, then it's because you don't want to see it. But that is what is being told to you. So now you realize that the idea that them telling you to eat meat or dead animals or anything dead for you to get your living protein is a joke. And what you need to do is get your living amino acids, get all your amino acids. If you get all your amino acids, there's no more conversation about protein because you're going to build yourself from scratch the same way every other animal does when it gets its amino acids. Does that make sense? And by the way, every single amino acid is found in the plant kingdom. Every one of them. Every amino acid is found in the plant kingdom. So you cannot be deficient of any amino acids by eating only foods in the plant kingdom. So whatever they want to say, understand that about amino acids and the facts. So anytime someone wants to come up to you, if you choose to eat a little differently and choose to change, and someone comes up to you and says, where do you get your protein? When you're done laughing at them, when you're done laughing at the silliness of their question, because you realize that it's coming from a place of so little information that you feel sorry for that person, okay? When you're done laughing at them for asking such a silly question, even though it's understandable because the whole world asks that question, you can politely say, I get all my amino acids, so thus there is no issue about protein. Now anyone who asks you about proteins but doesn't talk about amino acids, there's no reason to really take too much of your energy describing to them what's going on since they don't know enough. You understand? So they're sitting there from a very low level of information, so you can tell them a little bit, but they're not ready to hear so much of the truth because they're in their own little world. So let them ask the question, you can answer it politely, and move on. The keys to success, if you're going to choose to transition any way at all, the key to success is to be quiet. Never talk about what you're doing. Never talk about your dietary changes to anyone in your life. I mean anybody. Okay? The less you talk, the more you will act. The more you talk, the less you will act. Nobody cares about what you're doing. If they ask you questions, it's not because they're interested in you. It's because they're trying to bring you down to their level. Okay? It's not they're not being mean. They're not being bad. This is the nature of human nature, that if people see someone doing something smarter than them, they feel inferior, and then they need to attack you or us so that they can feel more comfortable in our presence. So the best way to preempt that is to be quiet. Don't talk about what you're doing. The reason why you may or may not choose to do what you may or may not choose to do is because of you and your relationship to God. And that relationship between you and God doesn't need to be spoken about to anybody. You're not doing it for anybody else. So what do they need to know about it for? The less you talk, the less you externalize what your intention is in life and what you're doing, the more power you will keep to actually do it. Okay? When you talk, you open up a reservoir of energy that then gets spilled out. I wrote about it in my book on a chapter called Silence. Talk is the greatest way to waste your energy and then to not act. So please understand, this is not about going out into the world and announcing to everybody how different you are and how I'm a vegetarian now, or wow, I'm so much better. No, first of all, you're not better. Second of all, who cares? Okay? Nobody. All you're going to do is make people feel inferior or feel uncomfortable in your presence. Well, what value is that? Someone sees you at dinner and normally you eat a cheeseburger, but you didn't eat a cheeseburger today, and they ask, well, what's going on? You don't say, well, I've started a new path now. I'm a vegetarian for the rest of my life, and even though it's been 6 hours. You don't say nothing. You say, you know what? I'm just not that hungry today. That's all I got to tell you. That's all you need to know about what I'm doing. Because what you need to know about what I'm doing, that's exactly zero. Because what I'm doing is between me and God. And the reason why I'm successful is I never talk about what I'm doing. I only do it. And so that gives me the power to actually do it. Does that make sense? So please appreciate that lesson, because that's a key to the success of the implementation of this information. Okay? Not just to understand it, but how to actually play with it. The way to play with it, first of all, is to experiment with it in a very sense of humor kind of way. You know, say, you know what, I'm going to do it for 2 days, or I'm going to do it for 3 days. And you know after 3 days you're going to go back to your old life. And then you're going to get ready again and say, you know what, now I'm going to do it for 6 days. You go back to your old life. And you say, you know what, now it's going to be 2 weeks. And then you go back to your old life. And you say, you know what, now it's going to be a month. And then you try to go back to your old life, and you try to eat something funny after you've been kind of getting healthier and stronger for months and weeks. Your body will feel different about that. Be just like my student in Peru, okay? He's a classical Latin American Peruvian man. That means he eats chicken twice a day, every day for his whole life. Peruvians eat chicken. They eat chicken. You don't understand how many chicken restaurants can be in one place. That's Peru. Okay, fine. So he goes to the same chicken restaurant all the time. Same chicken restaurant. Always orders his chicken. Well, he tells a story months later that after experimenting with the stuff here and there, he walks into the chicken restaurant, looks at the menu, and just turns around and walks out. And it wasn't because he had to tell himself, I am never eating chicken again, or nothing like that. It's just that he shifted. His energy level shifted, and his body just started to have a different understanding of what that was. No longer got perceived as food, got perceived as something else. Spiritual intelligence, everything got more intelligent. Now, he did not have to force that. That came in time. I'm telling you that you guys need to put in some tapas and some energy and some force for a week or two, because you're in yoga teacher training. But at the end of the day, this is going to be an evolutional process, maybe. That's a little slower, maybe it's a little faster. It doesn't matter. You're not going to judge yourself. You're going to take your time, you're going to have a sense of humor. You're never going to criticize yourself no matter what you ever eat, no matter what. You never insult yourself for it. There's no punishment ever. There's always compassion. You always just do your best and move on. And give thanks. Okay, so there's no judgment, there's no diet. This talk does not talk about a diet. There's no you have to be in a mode of deprivation. This is eat as much as you want. Just go ahead and see if you can eat intelligent stuff that has some alignment to your nature, to your biology. And then eat as you wish. There's no deprivation psychology. There's no diet mentality here. This is be bountiful. This is joyous. This is a blessing. This talk is a blessing. Okay? This is not about, oh, well, what can I eat? Well, I'll tell you what you can't eat or what you don't want to eat is dead, rotting, putrefying, nasty material. Oh, I'm sorry. Gee, what a terrible thing for me to suggest that you evict from your regimen. Nasty, rotting, cancerous, tumorous, disgusting crap. Gee, horrible thing for me to ask. Okay? So, this is an opportunity for you to be a scientist, for you to experiment with yourself, for you to see if this is true for you, for you to see how you feel, for you to see if this is actually has validity in your life. The thing is, you got to taste the mango. You got to try it for a week or two, and then let me know. Okay? There's no hurry. Enjoy the process. Have a lot of compassion for yourself. Just know, over the course of time, the less stuff you kill, and the less pain and suffering you cause, the more spiritually connected you're going to experience your life in the present moment. And the present moment is the reason why we do this stuff. We don't do this stuff so that we can have a future of foreverness in some fairyland. Okay? We do this so that right here, right now, we feel divinity within us and that we're here to make the world a better place, and we have the power and the energy and the capacity and the tools to actually do that. And us getting sick and dying early isn't going to help us do that. Make sense? Okay? I'll accept a couple of questions. Yep.
You said that there's 20 amino acids.
I believe so.
How do you know if what you're eating every day is giving you the amount that you need to satisfy your body?
GTS. Yeah, I mean, things like that is so easy to learn. Like what has amino acids. I mean, you could look at that in 30 minutes. You're so smart, you could research that. I mean, one of the reasons why we drink this green stuff is that it has all 20 amino acids.
Okay.
Yeah. So once you have this green stuff in your life, which is the AFA, that's a very specific species of blue-green algae, it has all the amino acids. It also has vitamin B12, something I have not talked about. Vitamin B12 is the reason why doctors tell you that you can't be vegan. Nutritionists say because of vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is constructed by a few microorganisms on Earth. Very few microorganisms can actually produce that which is legitimately vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is a coenzyme. All vitamins are simply coenzymes, meaning that they allow enzymes to do their job. Vitamin B12 they say that vitamin B12 cannot be found in the plant kingdom, that you have to get it from the animal kingdom. But then, these nutritionists, these doctors say, oh, well, if you're a vegan, then go ahead and take a B12 supplement. Because if you're not going to get the meat or the milk or the B12 from the animal, then you better take it from a supplement. So you would assume that the source of the vitamin B12 supplement would be from an animal, right? You would have to assume that. But it's not. It's from this. Cyanobalamin is this. You look on the back of any B12 supplement bottle, go to GNC any day. You're going to see one thing, cyanobalamin. Cyanobalamin is the vitamin B12. The vitamin B12, they're getting it, is from here. So isn't that a little bit like dishonest that the paradigm is telling us with such fervor that one of the main risks of eating intelligently is because we're not going to get our vitamin B12 because it doesn't exist in the botanical plant world. But then where they're choosing to extract it for their supplements is from the botanical plant world because this is the perfect source. And the way that we get vitamin B12 in nature, originally, like I said with the elephants, is by eating the dirt that comes with the plants or the fruit and getting the microorganisms. And we have the probiotic microorganisms, and they are the ones that their byproducting is vitamin B12. So that's how we get it normally. That's why probiotics are such an important component for your life. What I do in my own daily life is 4 things, okay? Just so you know. Or kind of besides eating regular food, which I eat, you know, vegetarian, vegan type cooked food a lot, things like that, hummus and everything. Besides that, the reason why I am as healthy as I am, if I am, okay, you never know, what God wills, but the reason is there's 4 things, okay? One is this green stuff, okay? The green stuff, I call it the green stuff, it's AFA, okay? It's a specific species, very much like spirulina, but different subspecies, different species really. It is powdered. When I travel, I take it powdered. And I always make it in my water always looks green. Okay? When I'm home, it's even kind of more powerful. Okay? And that's called E3 Live when it's frozen. I also do enzymes, digested enzymes. So every time I eat, I take enzymes with my food because enzymes is the key to saving your own energy. Okay? Enzymes are, you're either going to spend them from your bank or you're going to get to save them from your bank. But you have a bank of enzymes, a reservoir. And when your reservoir of enzymes gets depleted, you basically die. Death, one of the definitions of death, the biological definition of death, is the cessation of enzymatic activity in the body. That's actually the definition of death. Not so much that your heart stops beating, but that the enzymes stop functioning. So by adding enzymes, especially when I eat cooked food, which I do eat cooked food. So if I eat cooked food, there's no enzymes inherent in that food to break itself down like what happens if you eat an apple. The enzymes come in the apple and it helps you. But if you eat cooked food, it's devoid of enzymes. So I eat enzymes with my food. It helps me a lot. I take 3 at a time every time I eat. And I also take, what the point of this conversation about the B12 is a probiotic. Alright, with as many microorganisms as I can find. Some advertise they have 20. Some advertise they have 30, some advertise they have 8. I find the one that has the most, and I try to get that one. So probiotic, enzymes, and the green stuff is the foundation to my regimen. And then I eat for fun whenever I'm hungry. So if I get really hungry, well, I got to fill my stomach. But when I fill my stomach with food from the restaurant over here, and I eat a cooked sandwich or a cooked veggie burger, I never fool myself into thinking that I'm getting nourishment or nutrition or anything valuable from that. What I'm doing is I'm filling an empty stomach. I don't get nourishment or nutrition from cooked food. Nobody does. I get my nourishment and my nutrition from this stuff. And then I eat for fun. I call it eating for fun. I eat because I want to eat. Because I emotionally want to eat those pancakes. Those pancakes are not going to help my biology whatsoever, but they're going to help my emotion. Because I remember being a kid eating pancakes, and I like eating pancakes because it's fun for my emotional needs. That's fine with me. I'm allowed to have that. Okay, but I don't fool myself into thinking that I'm getting nutrition from eating pancakes. Does that make sense? I get my nutrition from what I get my nutrition from, and I eat for fun. And of course, sometimes I eat nutritious food a lot. I eat salads and avocados and things that are additionally giving me nourishment in my food and in my dinner. But if I eat cooked food, I am always sure that it's not helping me. It's just simply filling up my stomach. And I have the right to do that. Okay? Does that make sense? So B12 is clear. We have it here. Protein clear. Question?
Could you address GMOs?
Avoid them at all costs. Genetically modified organisms to be avoided at all costs.
It's hard to find in the marketplaces when you're shopping.
Do your best. Okay? Next.
I have actually some questions, but the first would be, you know how people would say like, oh, but if you're, I don't know, the only example I can think of right now is like a palm tree. You know how people eat the heart of palms or whatever? So you have to cut like the whole tree in order to get the actual heart of palm.
Not a palm tree. That's a plant that has the heart of palm as the fruit. But you don't kill a palm tree to take coconuts out of them, for example.
No.
So there's a difference between what you're talking about, which is a vegetable,
Okay.
and what you're talking about, and what you're also talking about with a fruit. What you're going for now is to say, well, don't you kill things?
Right.
That's
the point.
okay. So let's get this. I take that question very seriously. Okay, and I will declare right away, first, that if you eat meat, if anybody eats meat and asks that question, they can shut up. Because they have no right to ask that question. Only vegans can ask that question. Because only they have the right to discuss such a subtle matter of consciousness and suffering and pain. Because that's a more subtle conversation. And only if you're not a barbarian are you allowed to entertain that conversation with me. Does that make sense? I will not even entertain your attempt to make a connection between me eating a vegetable and you killing some animal because you want to make some intellectual point. Because that does not work. You're not in a position to have that conversation. But I'll still address it anyway. Okay? For someone who is able to talk about that theoretically with me, because we want to have a theoretical conversation and we're both on the same level with that talk. Fine. This is why we're not supposed to eat vegetables. Okay? Just so you understand. We're fruit eaters, as I said. We're primates. We're frugivores. Our real food, our truest food is fruit. We're not really designed to be vegetable eaters. We can eat vegetables. I eat vegetables all the time. But that's not really our best food. That's not our primary food, which is fruit. And fruit is designed by the tree and by God for only one purpose and only one purpose only, which is to be eaten. Fruit is made to be eaten. That's what it's for. You never kill the tree by eating the fruit. You help the tree by eating the fruit. Because you eat the fruit, you wander down the path a little bit and you defecate the seeds out and you just help the tree reproduce itself. That's what bats do, that's what birds do, and that's what we do when we eat fruit as well. So we are designed to be fruit eaters. That's why. Because with fruit there's no karma. There's no suffering at all. You're in the highest spiritual place when you eat mostly fruit. Okay? However, most masters, yoga masters, spiritual masters, meditation masters agree that the level of consciousness of a vegetable is so low that it falls under the domain of acceptability to eat vegetables. Now, that doesn't mean that it's perfect. It doesn't mean that you can't test a suffering, retracting, contracting energy in a plant once you chop at it. You certainly can, but it's detectable and it's not ideal. So if you really want to take it to that level, you eat only fruit. But most modern yoga masters agree that vegetables are okay to eat also. Okay? But again, the conversation has to be only had with people that are not trying to use the conversation as a way to justify what they're doing. Because what they're doing is in a whole other order of torture and despicable action than someone who's eating a spinach leaf. Okay, next question.
The other one was, when we're talking about omnivores, they're not as aggressive. Like, is it because they are eating...
What do you mean omnivores are not as aggressive?
Well, if you put like a chicken in front of a pig, I mean, is the pig really going to like go and try to kill it?
If the pig's hungry, it'll kill it immediately. Absolutely.
Pigs like humans, won't
Yeah,
they?
pigs will, the mob used to get rid of dead bodies by feeding them to the pigs. Yeah, they'll eat even the bones.
Oh, yeah, anything.
So it's...
And if you've ever seen a wolf, an omnivore, a wild dog, you've ever seen the ferocity?
Right, like, okay, so like the animal has to be taken to their like,
nature.
very hungry level. Like,
No, well, of course. Well, a pig is going to eat a chicken. If it's hungry, it's going to kill it. If it's not hungry, it isn't. But that's true with a lion. A lion wouldn't hunt if it's not hungry either. It just doesn't, I mean, in Africa, people would rather walk by a bunch of lions that are not hungry than walk by a water buffalo. Water buffalo is more dangerous because it's just not going to. So, what exactly is the question?
no, I mean, I guess the way that I thought about it wasn't like in their hungry state because, like, for example, I have a cat and like she will look at other animals, but she won't really.
You have a domesticated cat
Right.
who is always
being
full.
fed, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And if that cat got hungry and got put outside, it would start looking for lizards and it would start hunting right away. And cats were never domesticated, by the way. Just so you understand. Dogs have been domesticated. They're completely different. Cats have really barely been domesticated, and they're really just little versions of their own wild animals. Okay. Cats are just wild, and dogs are not. Okay. You never want to put a dog out in a forest.